Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackie. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital. Inside of any business, you need to make sure that you've got your view on some numbers that are really important. And one of those things is to make sure that you've got some early warning signs so that you can make decisive action to really get things right. Dean, this was a really interesting thing for me in the very early days of running the training company. I was always a bit of a mess. I was thinking, you know what, the Blueprint Training Conference is coming up and am I going to sell tickets or not and where are things going to look like? And I remember at the time my head of marketing turned to me and she said, I'm not doing this anymore. I said, what's that? She goes, we're actually going to have a set of numbers. So we know 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2 weeks out. How many sales should we have and where should we be so we can actually track it year on year so we know whether or not we're on track or whether or not we're off track.
Spot on.
And Dean, it's the best thing that's ever happened. I think my hair even started growing back after that. But the interesting conversation was I realised I was putting myself through a lot of stress because I didn't really understand the systems. So to me, everything in life is about building a set of systems that allows you to do it. It's about actually having a set of numbers that you kind of look at that you know are going to be important. When I look at great businesses, one business that I know, all they track is their forward pipe. How many auctions ahead do they have? Yep. Another business I work in, they just track how many opens did we do on Saturday. Another business that I work in, they actually just have a look at what are actually the total number of properties that are actually sold every month. You know, Dean, that's a great example in the sales environment. There's plenty inside of the property management environment too. How important is it for you to get clear about, you know, what are the metrics that really matter to make sure that you can land, you know, better quality results more often?
I'll tell you, when I was younger, Josh, I probably used to just run a lot harder and just, you know, think I was indestructible, you know, but I'm 52 now and I think the warning lights start flashing a bit earlier, but the warning lights are actually a very interesting lesson, right? So you sort of go, you know, because, you know, when you get in the car and if the alternator's not, you know, those little bits of the things flash. I'm seeing more of that in 52 than what I was at 42, but I digress. It's really about a dashboard that says how do you know your key metrics and do you have reporting on it so you actually know that there's an issue ahead. And so we really do look at like a rolling 3-month bunch of reporting. And without going into all the detail, I can provide some examples, but, you know, I think there's revenue is clearly a really, really important thing to be understanding where are you at, you know, on a rolling 3-month average. And I guess when you start then looking at listings versus exchanges and settlements, you can actually know pretty early if you actually have the nous to do so, to say, I expect that in a 3-month window, my revenue based upon my listings, exchanges versus my settlements is actually going to be dipping below where it needs to be, right? So you actually can know that with a forward 90 days that you've got potentially some cash flow stuff coming up in the future. So revenue can have a massive indicator, and then you're looking at, as I said, listings, exchanges and settlements. A massive indicator is in a forward way to know that you've got some potential cash flow issues or surpluses on the horizon. So it just helps you with your planning on knowing what levers do I need to pull, what energy do I need to put into what areas, and so on and so on and so on. Because you know, for me, that's a really important one. You know, there's, you know, Chris Mercer, he's got the Reap dashboard. I know there's a lot of guys who are using that now. We pioneered some of that with him, and the good news is that's a really good dashboard because it shows you a whole bunch of metrics. Again, it gives you a whole bunch of rolling 3-month averages and other bits and pieces, but you know, everything from your net margin to your number of productive agents in the business, you know, all of those sorts of things, they give you early warning signs. You know, if you're consistently seeing that you've got, you know, only half of your agents being productive, then man, you know, and most I wonder, some agencies wouldn't even know those numbers, particularly if they're a larger agency. But knowing those numbers is crucially important to understand what are the average numbers per agent in the organisation. What are we really doing here? Is it, I think you'll find in a lot of businesses, they're probably doing less than 1 deal per agent. Yeah, in some businesses, right? And then others, it might be an average of 3. But it's knowing what your benchmarks are and controlling them. You know, in deal land with agents, of course, there's simple things like days on market. You need to be tracking that, your auction clearance rates, and you know, all those sorts of things. And quarterly, monthly, weekly, right down to daily inputs. You know, sort of, because if you're doing revision mirror stuff, right? I mean, you sort of revision mirror. What you've got to try and do is get ahead of what the next 90 days could look like. And then you've got to make sure that the inputs are going into those 90 days to make sure that you can actually still influence the outcome, because there's no point just doing reverse, rear vision mirror stuff, because it's too late. It's good for indicative and it's good for forecast, but it's more so about, what are the levers I need to pull? What's the activity going on in the business that I need to influence? It's sort of, that's where you've got to get to. You've got to get to that stuff.
So one of the key things that we look at, okay, what strategies do you currently have in the business? What are the tactics that you're using to make those strategies happen? And what's the measurement that we've actually got around to know if we're on or off track? Right, so it's okay, great. So we've got a strategy in our business and it's called KJT. Like, what's that? Oh, keep Josh talking. So that's the gig, right? Yeah. So my job is to keep Josh talking. So what are the tactics that we actually do with that? Well, I don't deal with people about booking coaching or having conversations about admin or sending an invoice.
It's not productive for you.
I just don't do that stuff. Other people in the team do that, but I don't do that. And then we also have a rule. So anyone between $0 to $10,000 a year works with someone, 10 to 100,000 a year works with someone, and someone spending more than 100 grand a year will speak directly with me about a particular set of the things. I'll still do the delivery, but there's different people actually doing in the sales and the maintenance and making all that relationship function. It's so amazing. Now, how do we actually measure that? Well, is my calendar full? And if I find myself doing anything that I'm not doing, then that's actually a problem. When you go and have a look inside of a business like recruiting, let's say, okay, great, recruitment's a really important part. Okay, great, so what's the strategy? Well, our strategy is that we're going to go and add everyone on LinkedIn, we're going to go to People's Open for inspections, we're going to meet agents in that area, and then we're going to try to get a face-to-face meeting, and then we're going to try to get a one-pager in front of them, and we're going to try to get an offer in front of them. And okay, well, great, what's the measurement for that? Well, how many opens did we go to? How many meetings did we actually get? How many one-pages did we put in front of people? And how many people signed? So you can actually have a quick look at that flow. And most businesses have got all these strategies flowing, but there's no clear measurement of how would we know if that was actually working or not. And so what you see is a lot of started strategies that never ever get finished or never ever get run consistently over a period. Yeah. And then you actually have kind of like a legacy. You got all of this heaviness that we're just an organization that starts a lot of stuff and never nails anything. And it's actually okay to clean up and say, hey, that is just not a priority right now given the new market conditions or given the new strategy that we're setting in play, and to actually take some of that load off to just concentrate on core. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I think that's obviously, you if you're not in control of your business, then you're effectively, operating on a hope strategy, and hope's not a strategy, right? But Josh, to be honest with you, I think there's a lot of businesses that, you're right, they start stuff, they're not measuring it enough to know what the effectiveness is, and therefore they put time and effort and dollars into stuff, and it doesn't really go anywhere. So, look, I think the message is, if you want to be effective and you want to get ahead of the curve, to be able to influence your business, it's understanding what are those particular key metrics that can give you enough notice to say if you're on track or off track, so you can make some decisions otherwise. And so right down to an agent level, in terms of the number of connections they're making, the number of meetings they're having, it's all basic indicators as to what's going to happen down the track. I would run through, I had a meeting with two of our top agents last week, and we were talking about the fact we used to run everything in 90-day rhythms for them. So we start with their business plan, and we'd say, okay, let's reverse engineer it. On that basis, how many listings and sales do we need to make each month? And we'd work that out. And it's okay, well, how many listing presentations based upon your conversion rate, how many appraisals, how many calls, and so on and so on and so on. Now, if they got off track at any stage and they were behind because their average sale price was wrong, or they just didn't do the number of deals, we'd say, okay, well, what do we now need to do to catch that back up so we're actually going to get back on budget? It means that we've now got to accelerate and get you into more doors to create more listing appointments, to get more listings, to get you more sales, to get your budget back on track. But there's just simple little things. They're all little indicators, but you need to be tracking it.
So, Dean, one little thing I'm doing at the moment, I started on Sunday, literally just pulled out a sheet of paper and I've just gone through what are the current strategies that we've got in our business, what are the tactics that we're involved in with those strategies, and what's the measurement on that? Just so that I've got it on a really simple one-pager for my team to go, okay, great, this is a refresh of what we're actually doing strategy-wise and why it's working. And if you get that right, it changes the game so much for your people because they really know what actually matters. So the early warning signs can go off early enough for you to be able to make some changes.